this is recording stuff. Just the camera. Sit up here. I just figure there are too many people for one row. We need to. I have no idea. Mom's on her own schedule. sitting by you. I'm sitting by Nora. We're close, aren't we? I've got lots of books. I've got 3 books here.
here to travel to join us and gather in remembrance of his life and the impact that he's had on all of us. We'll start our services with an opening prayer by David's my brother and I, Spencer Colson, and then immediately following his sister Michelle. We're going to do a song first. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, we are. Sorry. Skipping over half of it at least. We'll start with an opening hymn. And we're grateful for the music for Holly, Sears' cousin, and Uncle Bill Marston on Loomis. We'll start with the opening hymn, and then we'll do the prayer process. Eulogy
welcomed into paradise by grandparents, his oldest brother, and other noble family members and ancestors. David was born on September 13, 1982 in Provo, Utah, the son of Doug and Mary Marsden Stewart, and was the 8th of 8 children. David's parents were the founders of Tuacahn Center for the Arts in Southern Utah, and music played an important role in his upbringing. But the love he gained at an early age for music did not include practicing the piano and violin. He would rather be off playing basketball with friends or recording original songs to express deep feelings. During family gatherings, David's bedroom studio was a magnet to his young nieces and nephews. He made each of them feel important by using them as backup singers while encouraging them in the creation of their own hit songs. David always encouraged his nieces and nephews to put it all out there, to share their hearts through thoughtful lyrics and use their voices to bring about positive change. He had an unwavering belief in people. One Christmas, he gave his nieces a guitar, a gesture that went beyond just a generous gift. It was a powerful way of showing his confidence in them, the Truax Trio, and in their potential to follow their dreams. David's lyrics were all about giving, and his voice and delivery were mellow and expressive. When asked about the inspiration behind his music style and messaging, David responded in a uniquely creative way. Assigned to hang the Christmas lights one year, he covered the entire roof, spelling out, "You too." The message was clear. Like Bono, U2's lead vocalist, he wanted his message to bring healing to the world. David loved basketball and was a die-hard Chicago Bulls fan. He also played on his high school junior varsity team. His fun-loving, easygoing, and mischievous personality made him a joy to be around. But perhaps his favorite role was that of uncle. He shared a special bond with his nieces and nephews, often taking them on adventures like fishing trips, toilet papering the neighbors, and creating backyard obstacle courses, always with the iconic Rocky theme song playing in the background. David's playful spirit and sense of adventure left a lasting impression. When our family, the Truaxes, lived in Green Valley, David was the best-loved babysitter. One weekend, he was scheduled to spend the night so the kids wouldn't feel scared or alone. However, before he arrived, the power suddenly went out, and eerie banging and strange noises echoed through the house. Panic set in as the kids wondered where their protector was. After what seemed like an eternity, David finally revealed himself as the mastermind behind it all. He had flipped the main power breaker and snuck into the house to create the haunting noises by banging on walls and slamming doors. It was all part of his mischievous plan, ensuring that his arrival and eventual rescue was the best part of the night. Another memory, in Dave's own words, quote, "One time when Mom was out of town and Dad was in charge, I was supposed to be home at 9 o'clock, but got home a couple hours later. I knew I'd get in trouble when Dad talked to me, so I snuck in, went to my room, cracked the door open and left my room lights on. Then I grabbed a Book of Mormon, laid down on my bed, and opened it in the middle somewhere and placed it on my chest. I then closed my eyes as if I'd fallen asleep reading it. Sure enough, Dad came into the room a couple minutes later and said something like, 'What a good kid.' Took the book off my chest, turned off the lights, and closed the door. I never got in trouble for it. Mom and Dad are just so innocent." While serving an LDS mission in Mexico, David learned to love biking, Upon his return home, he developed survival skills that allowed him to fully realize his passion for the out of doors. From that time on, adventure and opportunities that challenged his physical endurance were constantly calling to him, whether on foot, bike, kayak, or motorbike. Each year, his soul required at least one big adventure. This meant meticulous mapping and planning while fitting in time to complete his degree in elementary education from Dixie College. And what incredible experiences he had. Biking solo across the country twice, hiking the high Uinta, exploring the exotic Far East and Australia, disappearing 2 months in the deep Salmon River wilderness, kayaking the length of the Mississippi River and Baja California's Sea of Cortez, survival hiking for a month in Alaska, motorbiking from Texas to South America, in Peru, hiking Machu Picchu and teaching music at an orphanage, camping and motorbiking the full length of Africa, and biking through Japan and Taiwan. With the exception of his Far East travels, David chose to go it alone. When surrounded by pristine wilderness or on a river, he felt whole and complete and closest to God. To him, the greatest proof that God existed was the wondrous complexity found in the animal kingdom, from a blue whale to a tiny Etruscan shrew. And nothing broke David's heart more than to see any creature suffer. One needs only to listen to his music to reveal his soul. One pure and selfless passion to rescue any creature or person, harmed or hungry, cold or alone. And when given that opportunity, David was always there with a full heart and a love that was tangible. In 2013, when our family adopted 3 children from Ukraine, David was deeply moved by our decision and expressed his admiration for our efforts. He generously contributed to our fundraising efforts and sent multiple encouraging messages. The Christmas before the adoption was finalized, David drew our family in the annual gift exchange and sent me an email with a heartfelt message. Quote, "When I was trying to figure out what to get you for Christmas, I stumbled on a movie and ended up watching the whole thing. It made me really appreciate what you're doing even more," unquote. He told us our gift was on the way and we couldn't wait to see which inspirational movie he picked out. We were expecting something heartwarming and deep, and then we opened it. Laughter erupted. He had sent us Annie. I guess he figured nothing says hope like a red-headed orphan singing about tomorrow. As I've spoken to family and friends of David's over the past few weeks, the universal message has been loud and clear. David had a unique way of making people feel seen, valued, and truly cared for. One family member said, "I think David was my favorite uncle. Not because of any specific memories, but because of the way he made me feel when I was with him." You couldn't help but feel loved when in David's presence. So farewell, dear son and brother, who refused to be shallow in thought. You felt deeply, loved purely, and your dreams were so big. And when they became impossible, both mentally and physically, it is not hard to imagine a voice calling, "Adventures await you here. Come home." David is survived by his parents, Doug and Mary Stewart of St. George, Utah, his sister, Michelle Truax and James of Sharon, Massachusetts, his brother, Gary Stewart and Melissa of St. George, Utah, his sister, Peg Bird of St. George, Utah, his brother, Johnny Stewart and Vanessa of Riverton, Utah, and his sisters, Ann Colson and Spencer, and Bonnie Foley and Michael of St. George, Utah. He is preceded in death by his brother, Douglas Stewart, Jr. That's the end of the obituary. But I wanted to say I don't know what I'm going to say next. I have felt David's presence a lot in the last few weeks. And I keep saying out loud, what do you want me to share? What do you want the family to know? And in true David fashion, it's in riddle form. It's not clear, it's not words. It's feelings. I found this quote from David. He said, "One night as I was ruminating about all the wrongs I've done to others and to my pets, I had a thought. This is my own philosophy, but I feel it true in my heart. There will be perfect harmony and understanding that will come with death. I think that all the wrongs we've done to other people we will understand, but we will also understand all the rights we've done to others. Instead of hell or torment, there will be a harmonization." When I think of David, I think of someone who served, who loved with his entire heart. And the message that I think he wants us to know is the importance of serving and the importance of receiving. He wants us to understand that there's this reciprocation, this reciprocal motion that goes where we receive and we give, and we receive and we give, and we receive and we give. This morning, as I was pondering and praying and reading in the early hours of the morning, I was led to these lyrics, so I'll close with these. "Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. We are pilgrims on a journey, fellow travelers on the road. We are here to help each other walk the mile and bear the load. I will hold the Christ light for you in the nighttime of your fear. I will hold my hand out to you, speak the peace you long to hear. I will weep when you are weeping. When you laugh, I'll laugh with you. I will share your joy and sorrow till we've seen this journey through. When we sing to God in heaven, we will find such harmony, born of all we've known together, of Christ's love and agony. Will you let me be your servant? Let me be as Christ to you? Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too." I love David so much. He wants his love to carry on forever. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Well, I can just imagine Dave getting a real kick out of me being up here today. In a church, at a pulpit, speaking. He's probably smiling, that mischievous grin of his, shaking his head, saying, "Well, Peg, we both know you wouldn't be here if it weren't for me." So I'm Peg, I'm Dave's older sister. Dave was my little brother. Dave was also my friend. My good friend. Dave was the first of my siblings to know me, to know my heart, and to embrace me fully. We connected on so many levels. Our faith journeys, our sensitivity to others' pain, our deep love of travel, love of a good challenge and adventure, and our love of nature. Lucky me, David also had my back. Not in the sneaky, don't rat me out kind of way. I didn't need that kind of sibling. But the kind of sibling who had my back in the I'll stand up for you kind of way. This created a deep sibling bond between us. And it wasn't just one-sided. I had his back too, looking out for him. I was endeared to him. His courage ignited mine. I was always cheering him on, his biggest fan, and I deeply respected and looked up to him. When I moved out for college, he later told me that he cried. That was David's heart. On the day he died, he texted me to tell me he loved me. I didn't know then that that was goodbye. I cherish that message. David was the youngest of our massive crew of 8. If you know anything about the Stewart family, it's probably music related. All of us played instruments, and yes, we each fought Mom to varying degrees before eventually giving in to her grand vision of us becoming a second-generation Osmond family. Listen, it's complicated. So David comes along, and Mom decides to switch things up. Instead of the traditional cello, she decides it would be unique if Dave plays the violin. Mind you, in our house, instruments were gendered. Girls got violins at the ripe old age of 3 or 4, and boys got cellos. So yes, violin for Dave was Mom's bold, visionary move. Wouldn't you know it, after a power struggle between mother and son, Mom decided that I should take over his lessons. You know, a proper violin teacher. There I was at 17, hired to teach my 11-year-old brother. Confession, Mom? We did not achieve anything remotely productive in those lessons. Well, that's actually not true. We did manage to achieve something. We cracked jokes, we busted up laughing at each other, and we couldn't play a note. Somewhere between me trying to correct his bow hole and him purposely messing it up, a friendship was born. All right, let's get into it. There's no way to tell the life story of David without sharing about his wildly adolescent youth. He and the Green Valley gang, who many are here today, got up to some hilarious shenanigans. Not just that, they formed a camaraderie that impacted them all on a deep level. And I just want to say thank you all for, it's just been my delight to revisit these stories with you all. Thank you. And thank you for being his friends. You know, we like to sanctify the dead, but Dave was not sanctimonious. He didn't pretend to be perfect. He didn't act morally superior or pious. He was authentic and sometimes mischievous. And sometimes he got up to things that were, shall I say, borderline illegal? Okay, let's just call it what it was, illegal. Let's start with a mild one. Okay, this is very mild. David and his loyal band of pranksters by his side. They start with the classic doorbell ditch. You know this one, ring the doorbell, run away high, hope the homeowner doesn't catch you. But as with all pranksters, they got bored. They needed to up the ante. That's when the boys, likely David, invented the next level, the doorbell not ditch. This was a masterpiece. They'd ring the doorbell, but this time they wouldn't run. Oh no, they'd stand right there, dead silent, standing like a lineup of middle school statues on the front porch, staring down the poor, unsuspecting homeowner who opened the door. Can you imagine the confusion? Here's a group of boys saying nothing, doing nothing, just staring. It was creepy, maybe bizarre, exactly the kind of thing Dave would conjure up. Oh, but it didn't stop there. And there was the pièce de résistance, the door jam prank. So Dave and his friends would ring the bell and then pull the door shut from the outside. So the homeowner was trapped inside, tugging away, probably thinking their door had spontaneously broken. And on the other side, Dave and his buddies were calling through the door, hello, hello, as if they were the ones being locked up. Just the perfect amount of mischief to keep the neighborhood on its toes. Okay, I referenced our family music. You know, it was a big deal. Instruments were basically family members. Picking one up in our home was mandatory. But come middle and high school, David had other ideas. Basketball. He was determined, no, to make basketball his thing. Even if it meant breaking a few family rules. And by breaking rules, I mean breaking in. You see, David had a full-scale operation going on. This church has a nice basketball court, but getting in required some creative entry. So his friends say David was an expert. He had a few different methods, but that doesn't matter now. One way or another, this court was his. He spent hours, literally hours, practicing, and he got good. Like, good enough to hustle his friends out of their lifetime savings good. David played so much, he became known as one of the best, and definitely the most competitive player around. And here's where his status quo busting nature came in again. Senior year, he quits the basketball team and decides to devote himself completely to church ball, where he absolutely dominates. That season, this needs to be a movie, really. That season, he led the Green Valley First Ward to an undefeated season and the state championship. He became a legend. There was one game where he put up 63 points. He averaged over 30 a game that season, and to this day they say it was probably one of the greatest seasons of church ball history. What was so classic about Dave was that even with all his skill, he was never in it to show off or prove anything to anyone but himself. He didn't care about the attention. He just wanted to play his game on his terms, and he played it hard and with heart, and a little bit of that rebellious edge that made him David. We all had our teenage skirmishes with Mom. Mom, who as a parent was more military general than kindergarten teacher. Mom's approach was, let's call it, uncompromising. She was known for her high standards, her rules, her zero tolerance policy for any sort of nonsense. But while the rest of us quietly simmered in our rooms, secretly fantasizing about one tiny act of rebellion, David did it. It all started with him running away, not your average storm out of the house and I'll be back for dinner situation. Dave was really gone. He disappeared with the kind of resolve only he could muster. But before he vanished, he left behind a little bit of a calling card. Armed with a boombox, the soundtrack of rebellion, and that spark of teenage defiance. He left it right on the front porch, playing for my mom the unmistakable anthem of teenage rebellion. The Beastie Boys, Fight for Your Right to Party. A glorious musical stand for freedom. Okay, to understand this scene, you have to remember Mom was a no-nonsense type. She believed in bedtimes, chore charts, and generally not fighting for your right to party. So there was no doubt he'd crossed the line. But it didn't stop there. Remember, Dave had run away. He was proving a point. Turns out he had a genius plan. He'd set himself up with a pretty elaborate hiding spot. It was this church. Sleeping under the stage, washing up by the baptismal font, and enjoying unrestricted access to the basketball court. At school, word got out about Dave's disappearance, and he became an icon. A week later, the game was up. David, perhaps emboldened by his success, visited a friend's house. Unfortunately, the friend's parents, unaware of his anti-establishment mission, called my parents to let them know he was safe. The next thing we knew, the police were involved, and David's notorious escape came to an end. From my perspective, a little disappointing. I mean, here he was, our very own sibling outlaw, making a statement, a classic David move. Sure, he had a rebellious side, but somehow he did it with charm, with humor, and a level of courage we all secretly envied. Just determined to make it known he wasn't going to settle for being told how to live his life. And for those of us watching, it was like he'd thrown a punch for all of us rule followers. And you too, I just need to touch on this. David was without question the ultimate U2 fan. He wasn't just a fan, he was basically a founding member of a one-man Bono fan club. In David's mind, Bono was practically deity. An unforgettable David and U2 moment happened when he somehow scored a seat as a filler at the VH1 or MTV Music Awards. U2's on stage talking about the gravity of the 9/11 events. The whole crowd silent and somber. And then right in the middle of this national broadcast, what do we hear? David shouting, "Bono!" He said everyone just turned and glared at him like he'd interrupted the Pope. But did he care? Not one bit. It was David's personal shout out to his hero. To this day, we can't think of David without thinking of U2, the band that sparked so much joy in him. Okay, remember how I mentioned illegal? Well, here's a teaser. Just one. There was a phase in high school when Dave and his friends, they got into, let's call it a little bit of an explosive hobby. Okay, looking back, everyone can see how reckless this was, but you have to understand, these guys, they were raised here, straight-laced, no parties, no typical teenage trouble, just wholesome Mormon boys channeling their restless energy in the safest way they knew how, by building homemade bombs. Compared to other forms of teenage rebellion, it seemed almost productive. So picture this, they'd go to Ace Hardware, casually strolling up to the counter with a basket of fuses, gunpowder, galvanized ties, clay, and the cashier didn't even bat an eye. One particular night, they decided to test their latest creation at a nearby construction site porta potty. Now, they weren't just going to set it off, they were going to film it too. So they went to the pipe under the toilet seat, lit the fuse, and ran for their lives. And when it blew, it blew. Plastic everywhere, bits of it landed on houses. The porta potty was gone, obliterated. All that was left was the floor. And naturally, the only thing to do at that point was escape. So they make it back home, adrenaline pumping, and they're all crowded around. They want to watch the film. And there's a knock at the door. As if summoned by fate, 2 police officers were standing there to chat about the evening's events. Didn't take long to connect the dots. Dave and another friend, Jake, I don't know if Jake's here, being the freshly minted 18-year-olds of the group, got a special invitation to spend the night at the holding cell. It's funny to think about now, but at the time it was probably more of like the end of an era. But for David, it was just another notch in a lifetime of adventures. Always a little outside the lines. Always with a spark of mischief. He had that mix of grit and playfulness that made you want to join him, even if it meant running for your life a minute later. Okay, so I did make a commitment not to talk about feelings today, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably breathing a sigh of relief. Just kidding, I did not make that commitment. I've got the mic, I've got your full attention, we will be talking about feelings. Okay, I just wanna slow this down for a minute and speak to y'all at peg speed. So I'm gonna ask for your participation, which is any of you who've experienced loss. This is loss through death, via death, divorce, breakup, job loss, loss due to mental illness, disability, disease, loss of hope and expectation. If you've experienced loss, please raise your hand. And I'm going to raise both of mine to show you I'm in this with you. Look around. Keep your hands up. Look at us. We're all the same. Put your arms down and maybe put them around someone next to you. David would also be raising his hand if he were alive. Suffering is a universal part of being human, which means so is grief, and it is a piece that binds us together. I wonder about grief. I wonder why our culture rushes to package it up, place it on a shelf in a dark corner behind a locked door. I wonder why we pretend our suffering is pretty, or tidy, or finished business. Why must we bypass grief's essence, eschew its presence? Attempts to explain it away anesthetize its impact. as we just witnessed, it's an unavoidable part of being human. There must be a reason why this is so. There must be a reason why it hurts so much to experience loss. Since Dave's death, I have been awestruck at the primitive and feral nature of grief. Is it necessary for our grief to be tidy? Maybe it's just messy. Maybe it just hurts. And our work is to look at the mess, to honor the depth and the wildness of the hurt and grief. Maybe this is where we grow. This is where we learn. This is where we are broken open. What an exquisitely beautiful experience grief mandates of us. In its fiercely untethered and organic nature, our hearts are stunned to slow. Our bodies made heavy. Our eyes swell with tears. Our throat constricts and catches as we gasp for air. This emotion ripples through us, unearths our wildly untamed emotions that are so distinctly ours. Emotions that cannot be domesticated in a society that demands we be in control. We are grieving a great loss in David. Appropriately so. Maybe our pain is here to teach us something, maybe expanding into greater compassion. Maybe it's teaching us that the way we're living isn't working for us. Perhaps it's leading us to wake up, to address unfinished business, and maybe, perhaps, it will lead us to asking for help, for community, to remind us that we can't do this life thing alone. We cannot do this life thing alone. This is grief. This ground we walk on is sacred. Our tears are holy. We will rebuild, it's what we do. But maybe it's just okay to pause, to look around at the terrible reality and weep together. Brene Brown talks about a lesson her mom taught her about when people are in pain, when people are grieving. And the lesson was simple. Don't look away. Don't look down. Don't pretend not to see hurt, even when their pain is overwhelming. And when you are in pain, find the people who can look you in the eye. We need to know we're not alone, even when we're hurting. David, your brother, my friend, we wanted so desperately to keep you. I welcome this hurt because your loss is profoundly painful. I imagine you now in your animal sanctuary, a beautiful fishing pond, you and Douglas sitting with your legs hanging over the dock, smiling, talking, and of course Maisie is there jumping with joy. You are smiling. You are set free. We love you ever and endlessly. Thank you for the extraordinary pleasure of having you in our lives.
Now hear from David's father, Doug Stewart, and then a family friend and memory leader, whose baby will follow.
I wish to bear witness that at this time, our son, our brother, our uncle, our friend, is in a state in which it is well with his soul. I know this through a witness of the Spirit, the Holy Ghost. This has been difficult. I adored my youngest son, my little boy. We were friends through his struggles in recent years, due to social anxiety that was overwhelming. I came to know David in such an intimate, personal way. He is pure. When my father passed away in 1988 in Las Vegas, he was in a hospice. And I and several of my sisters were present. And I witnessed him transition from mortality into the next realm of light. It was an amazing experience, personally for me. For at the moment he passed, the room was filled with light and love. Rose, you were there, I believe, weren't you? The last words he uttered were to my sister Kay, who had just come to see her dad. I love you. That I love you. Embraced, I don't know how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I mean, like 50 grandchildren, 50 great-grandchildren, I believe, at the time. And I pondered what experience my father went through. That night I prayed before I fell asleep. What happens when we die? I had a dream. I dreamt that it was me lying in that bed. And my family was gathered around me at the time. It was just Mary and all of our kids. And lying in bed, I can remember Mary at the end of the foot of the bed. And I remember her weeping. And I thought, why are they crying? And then it happened. It was like in an instant. I slipped out of my body and I was standing at the head of the bed, and then I moved upward and I was looking down at my family grieving. Why are you grieving? I was just filled with love and light and release and joy. It was just such an amazing feeling. My prayer had been answered in such an astounding way. And the first thing I said was, Dad, because I wanted family. Dad, I knew he was there waiting. But he wasn't there immediately. It was a messenger who I have no idea who he was, except he was a nice guy, And we did not speak. I simply followed him. And with thought, we moved up through the ceiling of the facility, and we were above Las Vegas, and the lights down below. And we were moving somewhere, and I knew it was somewhere good. And I said to this messenger, how does this happen? How do we move like this just by thinking it? And I looked at him. He put his hand on his heart. He says, the power is here. And that said everything to me. It's our hearts. It's who we are. It's our virtue. It's our goodness. It's what we want more than anything. And that's where the power came from, our righteous desires. So that personal answer to a prayer has had its effect on me with the passage of David. With my son Douglas, I had a difficult time, but I also had that moment, as I did with my father, when the room was filled with light. It was different. It was his voice, and it was comforting. And it was also reprimanding. Stop it. Not in those words, not like that, but basically, there's no need to grieve. I'm okay. I'm with family. I'm healing. And I was filled with that joy and put it behind me. That was not the case with David, because I took a long time. The grief, the feelings of loss, the unexpected passing of a young man that I had gotten so close to, and he shared so many things with me. The last time we sat face to face was a year ago. It was at Thanksgiving when Mary and I went to California. And he had what a Thanksgiving it was, this great restaurant on the hillside. And, must have been, I don't know how much, but it was a lot that he poured out for us to have a nice experience, which he always did whenever we went to California. A gift card for his mother's at Macy's. A gift card to Cinnabon for me because he knew I liked that. A dinner at Knott's Berry Farm because that was a family tradition. Bravo Burger for breakfast. Well, my family knows all of these places and all of these things because it was, and it always, and where did we stay? Muggin's home. It was the home where the that David was caring for when he passed away. Muggins had asked him who, she's in a care center in this home. It was our second home, and she had willed to marry upon her passing. So we took some pride in making sure it was taken care of. And the individuals that were renting it before David came along had destroyed the place. I mean, Mary and I went down and we went to Muggins, we were just sick at heart. These kids, that's what they were. They were just teenagers that would just ruin the place. And so we said, can we get David? If David can come and stay here, can we work out a deal for him? And Muggins said, oh, of course. She loved David. So what happens? The next time we came down after David had had it for less than a month, he could eat off of the floor. Everything was organized. The garage had been cleaned up. The walls had been washed down. The sink drain that didn't work and the disposal had been fixed. The locks that had never worked properly had been repaired and fixed. That's David. He was meticulous in his planning, his organization. He took pride. He had to be organized or he couldn't function. That was his life. And we were recipient of that great blessing to see that home. And we took great joy in coming whenever we could. This was like 3 years ago. And then Mary's health began to, have issues. So we haven't been able to go down since that last Thanksgiving visit I had with David. But there were phone calls, plenty of those, and emails, plenty of those. And a continuation of an exchange that we had developed over the years of sharing things. He wanted to be open. His heart was open. He wanted truth in his life. From whatever the source, he never shied away from the talk I would send him. Send more. And then discussions, well, I agree with this and I don't agree with that. And so it goes with any relationship, right? But he did want truth in his life. Those of you who have been to Muggins' house, raise your hand if you've ever been to Muggins' house. Oh my goodness, what about all you people who did something? It's such a great, it's a Rambler, it's early California, 1940 Rambler, and a single floor, and, with wood beam ceilings, and quite rustic, and, to say the least, but how, oh my heavens, Mary would take trips to Muggins home all the time to take her kids. She had to have the best music teachers, Peggy only shared just a bit of that story about music and the part it had in the lives of our kids and the role Muggins played. Not only in having a hotel with open doors all the time, but we would go down there and Muggins would open her heart and beach parties, and she had all the equipment ready to go, and she'd have a barbecue, and she created so many wonderful memories. We do love Muggins, and David loved Muggins. And his role was to take care of the house, to help her with her mail, her taxes, everything that she couldn't do being in a rest home, and to take care of her cats. All right? Muggins was a cat lady. And she always had 8 to 10 cats. She had her indoor cats and she had her outdoor cats. With David, they were always outdoor cats. Okay, I want to set the scene. There's a couch, and it is the couch that David was lying on when he passed away. And it's next to a sliding glass door. You kids know that, right? The backyard, a patio. Well, that's where all the cats would gather to wait for David in the morning and in the evening when it was chow time. My last experience with David, I was on that couch. He didn't know I was observing him, but I watched as 6, 7, 10, 12 cats began to gather. And one appeared in which I could tell caught David's surprise. And I thought, well, apparently this is somebody new. And he was, how can I describe him? He was skinny, shaggy, hungry, not cold because it's Southern California. I wanted to say cold because it always sounds good. But I will say he was shaking, but I think it was from stress. He was shaking and nervous because David was new to him. And this is something I heard through the glass door, unobserved. Hey, buddy. Hey, where did you come from? Did your friends tell you about me? You're in pretty bad shape. It's okay. I won't hurt you. I'm a good guy. Been keeping bad company, have you? I've got some warm milk. I mean, if you prefer cold, I'll get that. Don't be shy. I've got your back. I'll make sure you're all well. My name is Dave. What's yours? I'm not exaggerating. He would speak to these animals. He was a cat whisperer, a dog whisperer. And they would respond. And suddenly the shy cat was being embraced by David as he held it close to his chest and petted it. And the connection was made, a connection that would not be broken as long as the cat was willing to accept David's embrace. Does that speak to his heart? The power that comes from his heart? Afterwards, he came in and I said, Dave, that was profound. You weren't watching, were you? I said, David, don't apologize. That was so beautiful. You are such a good person. I am not. I'm not good. Dave, how many times do I have to tell you you're amazingly good? That was David's problem, and it comes with the social anxiety he carried with him. After his mission, he came and said, Dad, I've got a confession to make. And he said, it started in high school, and I've shared it with nobody. But I feel people were judging me all the time, that I just don't match up. I said, well, how does it, tell me a little bit about it. He says, well, after I have a conversation with somebody, all I can do is think about, I didn't have the right diction, I didn't have the right grammar. I came across as being uneducated. I just didn't know how to handle the situation. I said, David, join the crowd. That goes on all the time. It's being human. It's the whole situation. If only I had not sent that email. I wish I could take it back. It's life. But these things festered and they grew and they became very deep. And it was so hard for him to be comfortable in large groups, especially when he was talking to people and he thought he was constantly being compared and judged. On one occasion when we were visiting with him, at the end of a wonderful 3 or 4 days together, I said, well, Dave, what was the best part? This was towards just as we're getting ready to leave. What was the best part of your visit? He says, well, it hasn't come yet. What do you mean? It's when you leave. And of course we had a laugh about it, but it was true. He was pushing himself. He went beyond his comfort zone. because he wanted us to be happy. Because he did love us. We knew that. His family knew that. On the back of your programs, this is an excerpt from the last letter he sent to his family, found next to his body. The depths of my love for all of you. This is after he listed, mom and dad and cousins and everybody else. He didn't mention anybody by name because he didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. That's him. But the depths of love for all of you, it is so deep and extends beyond the reach of time. Of course, that was code to us. Those are the words that our kids would sing when they were in diapers, The circle of our love goes on and on and on. And that circle, that love beyond the reach of time is what David is experiencing right now. And I needed to know that, but I didn't feel anything. I prayed and I waited for the comfort. I so desperately wanted to know it was okay. And when we met with the mortuary, they asked if we wanted to have David in his temple robes. And I said, is that permissible? He's been inactive. And he said, well, his name is still on the church, right? I said, oh yeah. It's not that he didn't have a love for the church. He had questions and concerns. He had told me he wanted to step away for a season because it was so interesting. He came home from his mission and, just involved as ever before, but then he started being asked to say prayers and to be involved with people, working with people. And that was hard for him. And so that went to sitting in the back of the chapel in a ward that nobody knew him, so he could go and take the sacrament each week. That was his spiritual experience. And finally, and I can't go through the whole thing because he went through counseling and he really was trying. And finally he came to me and said, Dad, I have really been praying about this, and I asked the Lord if I could step away for a season, if that would be okay. And I got an answer. I said, well, what was your answer? He said, I felt warmth and I felt peace about it. I said, how can I not honor that? And so I said, but you do know, and then we read a scripture in Alma, that once we choose to step away, if we're not careful, we will lose a little here, a little there, and eventually we will lose it all. And he says, I understand. I said, so, do we keep the channels open? You and I, your mom, we can share, you can share, we're honest and open. He said, oh yes. And it went back and forth. Conference time, he would watch conference and we would share what we enjoyed and things that really resonated with him. And he loved Elder. You've got to forgive my age. I knew this would happen before I started. His favorite apostle was Uchtdorf. And so he would always want to talk about his messages because they really, really touched him. And one of his messages was doubt your doubts. And that was the theme that I found on his computer. He left very little on his computer, but a lot of stuff that was code to me about tithing and about doubts and about trust and about Christ being the center and the answer to healing. And it was just enough that brought his dad to peace, but I wanted more. Anyway, as we met with the mortuary, wonderful people who have arranged this service, they told me that he could be in his robes, but something inside me said, but I need to know he accepts it. And it didn't come. But nevertheless, the process had begun. They bought all new clothes for him. And I told Gary, when the time came for someone from the family to go and actually to clothe him of the robes of the priesthood prior to having, in the casket, or to preparing for that, I said, Gary, I can't do it. I just can't do that. I know I would just break out. So he says, fine, I'll take care of it. Don't worry, Dad. Gary knew nothing about my struggle with this. And so the morning of, which was yesterday, Thursday was, right? I can't believe it. It seems like a week, it seems like a year ago. But Gary picked me up, and I called him before we went, and I said, Gary, we need to dress in our Sunday clothes. We need to have a white shirt on and a tie. This is sacred, what we're going to be doing. And he said, oh, I agree, Dad. So he picked me up, and we had a word of prayer, and then drove to the mortuary, and had a chat with our lovely daughters out front. They had been in, and that was such a nice springboard to what was to happen, because they adored his sisters. And so, in my heart, I was praying, please give me a confirmation that David accepts this. I need to know with absolute certainty. And it came. The minute we walked in and I stood at his lifeless body, before his lifeless body, I felt his presence. He was standing next to me, looking at his mortal remains just as well as I was. And I was filled with the confirmation. From the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. Gary didn't know what was happening. He knew that there was something happening, but I didn't share with him what I was going through and the answer that this was to me. Because of that, David is now fully tied of every asset that he left in this world. Because I know and have a sure witness that he is with family. He is healing. And we don't need to grieve anymore concerning his state of mind and the direction he is moving. He is in a good place. Let me just close by sharing, besides commenting, this little quote I think is so beautiful that he wrote in his letter after he had talked about loving all of his family. A close second was this: I am sobbing, thinking about the cats. I love them more than they could know, and yet I have abandoned them. I mean, think of that. David was meticulous not only in planning his trips, his adventures, he was meticulous in planting his passage from mortality. You cannot believe the lists in terms of how to deal with his cryptocurrency accounts, his passwords, everything was in line. I mean, he left more than enough to pay for his funeral in cash, plus, all of his other assets. And he entrusted me. He wrote to me and said, Dad, he didn't say these words, but the way it was written, everything was entrusted to Dad, and I honor that, and I plan to realize and fulfill his wishes. I know he has a favorite charity for animal relief and rescue, and they will be getting a donation, as well as other things that I'm waiting for inspiration on, and the family will be involved as well. So that he is honored in ways that really mean something more than, there's some kind of a purpose to his death. He knows what he did was wrong. I know that. And he is trying to make amends the best he can. He is in a beautiful place. I look at this picture, and it was selected because to me, look look at his eyes, he is a personage of light. He is pure. I had a bishop's interview with him following this cat experience I had. I asked him about his personal life. I said, do you watch yourself when you're browsing the internet? Do you ever feel tempted? He says, I've had occasion, but it's not me. It darkens my spirit. It makes me feel low. He said, he goes to, something to do with charity or, a way that will enliven the spirit and lift and cause a person to feel joy for goodness and virtue that exists there for all who will reach for it. So, this is your brother. Mary, this is your son. A personage of light in a good place with his older brother, with his granddad on both sides, and grandmas and ancestors. I've shared with him, in joking, I said, now you look at this person and you look at this was like 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about family history. Now remember, when you get to the other side, if anything happens, you die in a plane crash going to Alaska for one of your adventures where a bear eats you, when you get to the other side, I want you to check out John Stewart, 1642, Long Island, New York, and find out what ship he came on, so we can connect to Scotland, on our family history. I mean, we would have discussions like that. David is happy. I want to bear you one witness. That the reason it is well for our souls, not just David's, but everyone here, and all of mankind, it is well for our souls because of an infinite atonement. The selfless giving of his life and excruciating suffering that we cannot even begin to understand personally for each one of us in this room. The depth of his suffering, what he descended to, cannot be overemphasized. That is why it is well for our souls. And because of it, we will all be resurrected. And David will be resurrected not as only as a personage of light, but he will have a body that's filled with energy and power and endless seed and exaltation, worlds without end. That is our son, your brother, your uncle and friend. And I bear this witness to you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
It's an honor for me to be here today and to honor my good friend David Stewart. I love and appreciate Doug and Mary Stewart and the family. 30 years ago, when Sheila and I and our family moved into the ward, I was an active lost soul, and Doug and Mary were Sheila and I's heroes. Doug actually married us and actually traveled with us to Manti as we were still in the temple. I just will always, the rest of my life, have a soft spot in my heart for Doug and Mary Stewart and the family. I was called, after moving into the ward, I was called to be the scout leader. And David was one of the scouts. And we soon became good friends because of our love for basketball. We had a friendly rivalry between my Utah Jazz and his beloved Chicago Bulls. And we played one-on-one many times. And that's what we did mainly most of the time for our scout activities, is we played basketball. And I played basketball in college, and me Brucery. I don't know where they came from. That was their nickname for me. All the scouts called me Brucery. He said, Brucery, are you taking it easy on me? I said, no, I'm not. He said, I didn't think it'd be this easy. He was very good at basketball, very good player, very competitive, and I loved the competition that we had. Peggy, I finally realized why he never asked for a key to get into the gym. He played basketball all the time, but never had to ask for a key. Never dawned on me why, that he never needed one, I guess. These past few weeks since David's passing, I had the opportunity to go look through all my scout pictures that we take. And just the many fond memories just flooding back of David and the great time we had. I just felt, as I saw our group pictures, I just felt like I was one of them. I didn't feel like I was their leader. They taught me more than I taught them. Being fairly new in the gospel at that time, they knew much more than I did. And there were just a couple of short stories I'd just like to share with you about David. We had gone on a camp trip, and we'd gone to our tents, and these boys, and many of them are here today, and it's been great to see all of you in the Green Valley First Order. It's like a been a Green Valley First Order reunion today. But these boys always like to stay in the same tent, and there would be 10 or 12 of them in one tent. And one camp trip, David was the leader, and he would lead them in singing. And I was a little ways away in a tent by myself, and they would sing a television sitcom theme song, start to finish, until they would think of another one. And then they would sing a Disney song, and this went on and on and on. And I fought off the urge because I wanted to yell at them to be quiet and go to sleep. But pretty soon I was singing along with them. David would think of the song, and he would start them singing, and all the boys would join in and sing. And I thought to myself, they could be in a lot worse place than this. It was a great experience. David was the ringleader. One of the hikes that we went on, we hiked the subway. And a few months before we went on the hike, there had been a tragedy up in Zion's National Park with a group of scouts. They got caught in a flash flood, and one of the leaders, I think two of the leaders drowned in this flash flood. So this was on our mind. I was worried about it. We were going to go hike the subway, and so like always, before we go to an activity, we meet, and we would go over the rules and what the plan was. And I had told the boys, if there's a cloud in the sky, we're not going. If we get up there and there's a cloud, we're not going to go, because I was so terrified of this happening. And I instructed whoever to say the prayer to make sure you ask that we're safe and that we have good weather. I don't remember who said the prayer, but that was mentioned. We had a wonderful time. We hiked the subway, and everything was great. We had wonderful weather. We're driving back into town, and all the boys in my truck were asleep. And we're getting back into town. We're coming driving up to the church, and I just told them it was time to wake up. And we're home. Didn't have a great time, and silence. And David spoke up and said, maybe we should offer a prayer and give thanks that we were kept safe and we had good weather. And I thought, there it was. He was teaching me. And ashamed as a leader that I didn't think of that, I told him to go home and give thanks to your Heavenly Father for our safety and the good weather and their personal prayers. David, before he went on his mission, he actually worked at the turkey farm with me. And I was so surprised. He was a really good worker. He was a hard worker in this sticky, hot environment. He worked really hard. And one of our jobs is that we picked up turkeys to be vaccinated. And the people that did the vaccinating were older ladies that came and worked part-time. And he was so kind to them, and they always asked after he left about David and how David was doing. He was always so kind and remembered their names and had conversations with them as they were talking. we were working. And then just recently, just a few years ago before David moved to California, as a friend, and at that time as his bishop, had a wonderful opportunity to have some good conversations with David. I can tell you that he believed in his Heavenly Father. He believed in his Savior Jesus Christ. He wanted to serve. He had a wonderful heart. David had no guile. He was non-judgmental for others, but might have judged himself a little harshly. You know, we usually don't associate happiness with death, but happiness or death is a crucial part of God's plan of happiness, the plan of salvation. This is the plan that we all chose before we came here to this earth. We chose this knowing that we were going to be tried, knowing that it was going to be hard, knowing that this temporal existence was going to be short-lived and that death was going to be temporary. This is in Psalm 42. Now behold, it was not expedient that man should be reclaimed from this temporal death, for that will destroy the great plan of happiness. When I heard of David's passing, of course my heart broke for Doug and Mary, for them having to go through this trial. Second time, I can't imagine the heartbreak. But I soon felt the light of the thought of David being reunited with loved ones, and for the relief that he felt from the trial that he was going through. President Nelson has said that we cannot fully appreciate joyful reunions without later tearful separation. We cannot fully appreciate joyful reunions later without tearful separations now. The only way to take sorrow out of death is to take love out of life. I really believe that David did his best. And I really believe that he is in spirit paradise right now, being taught and also teaching others. I believe that he's there experiencing a fullness of joy that he's experiencing without the burden that he carried in this life. And I know that we'll see him again. This is it now. Alma teaches us that the spirits of all men, as soon as they are departed from this mortal body, are taken home to the God that gave them life. The spirits of those who are righteous are received into a state of happiness, which is called paradise, a state of rest, a state of peace. I don't think any of us here really understand the trial and the burden that David carried. But there are two that understand fully. And that's our Heavenly Father and our Savior Jesus Christ. Our Savior Jesus Christ came to this earth to suffer these things, to suffer agony and pain, so when it came time for him to be our judge, he would understand this. I'm thankful for him. I'm thankful for the knowledge that I have that we will see David together as a family and as loved ones. And I'm thankful for the sacrifice of our Savior Jesus Christ, and I bear witness that I know this is true, and I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Today we have the opportunity to honor David's life and celebrate a life that's touched each of us deeply. Words are probably way too small to really express how I feel, probably how all of us feel. But as we have the opportunity to share together and to connect with each other, I hope that we can find a little bit of strength and comfort. And just remembering that us, and we can continue to celebrate and honor his life through the impact that he has had on us. I believe that this life is made up of opposition. That opposition in all things gives life beauty and fullness. And our grief is a good thing. It's an opportunity to provide and fill our love in fullness. It's a representation of how deeply we cared and loved David. And whether we see his passing through the lens of faith or only through the beauty of human connection, it's undeniable that David has a lasting legacy that will endure beyond this life. For those of us that believe that there is life and that our souls continue, we can find hope in Dave being with loved ones, being with his Father in heaven, and that he's finally found peace in the presence of God. As Latter-day Saints, we believe that families endure for eternity, that they go on, and that the veil of death is just a temporary separation. If you believe in Jesus Christ as a Savior, the promise of eternal life, Jesus reminds us, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And this hope can fill our hearts, even if our hearts are broken today. But for all of this, no matter what we believe in, whether we believe in God, whether we believe there's an afterlife, or we consider it something unknowable, or we're just not sure, there's comfort in knowing that he will live on in each of us, that he's actually taught us lessons, that his kindness and his laughter and his strength and the light that he brought just by being in his presence will continue on. And we have the opportunity to share it with others. It's been a hard day, it's been a hard few weeks, and the loss is painful. It also unites us and gives us an undeniable point of connection. Grief's a beautiful reflection of the depth of our love, and we can draw on strength from each other as we carry on David's light. As we walk out of here, may we hold his memory close and be inspired by the life that he led, the life that was too short. Let's honor his life by being kind to each other end of this life is not the end. I know there will still be it again. And I bear witness of that in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. We'll now conclude with first verse of hymn number 152. God be with us, or God be with you till we meet again. And then David's niece, Ellen Colson, will give the closing prayer. And then afterward, we wanted to we wanted to give the last word to Dave. And so after the closing prayer, we'll be playing a musical number, sing a song. Later in the song, if you want to join in, something that will help us conduct if everybody wants to join. It's the opportunity for Dave to have the final word.
Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful that we all gathered today to remember the wonderful life of a brother, an uncle, and a friend, Dave. We are so grateful for everyone who shared their memories and everyone who kept them in our hearts. Father, we pray that we can keep these memories throughout our lives as we go through our days, knowing that Dave will always be with us. Father, we're so grateful, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.